Hello and welcome to your weekly tarot forecast for the week of June 16th through the 22nd. This is your glass half full perspective on the week ahead. I am Michelle Shea Walker, your reader. And if you are a paid subscriber on Substack or if you tipped your reader this week, be sure to stick around until the end of the forecast to see if you won the weekly personal reading drawing. So I'm not going to lie, this week's a bit of a mixed bag. The astrology itself, as it stands, could go either way, but our cards are telling us a slightly muddled story. It feels like we're trying to write some patterns, some habits, some thought processes that are kind of hanging up our progress forward. That's kind of what June's been about, like wrapping up loose ends, making sure that the projects that you've been too busy to complete or too scared to complete are not gonna just die in your drafts. And there's just some work that's going to be done this week. So I'm going to preface the week ahead by saying that right away. And I feel like it's going to show up slightly different for all of us, but there is an element of recognizing where you're getting in your own way. So I just want us to be really gentle with ourselves this week, and not in a way that we let ourselves off the hook, but in a way that we recognize that this is hard work, even if it doesn't seem like hard work. This feels a lot, and I'm feeling it in my own bones, in my own life as well, like trying to get over that imposter syndrome or that feeling of not being good enough for what we desire. And I think that we're going to continue to hit sort of like elements of that as we trudge forward throughout the week. And it may show up really subtly. It may be something that's not like a huge dramatic thing that you uncover. But it is going to show up really, especially in our day-to-day habits. That's really what this feels like, is that we're looking at what we're doing on a daily basis that is hindering our progress towards our dreams and towards our goals. And I think that that is harder work than we give ourselves credit for. So don't keep moving forward. Don't stop moving forward, but also congratulate yourself for being brave enough to tackle these tasks of the week ahead. But don't stop. Like, keep going, but recognize that it is hard and you're doing a good job, and that it takes a lot of strength to go through what we're doing on this sort of minute underbelly, like dark side of the psyche work that seems so subtle, and you may not see a lot of shifts in the outside world, but it is going to really help to move things forward externally as you do that internal work. So know that that's just as important as the external work is. Okay, with that in mind, we're going to dive into our cards and our astrology, starting with Monday, June 16th. So Monday, June 16th, relatively quiet on the astrology. We do have the moon moving into Pisces at some point during that time period. So there is sort of a dreamier, lost in daydream and illusion type energy. I'm a Pisces moon, fully own that energy. But there can be an element of preferring the fantasy over reality when the moon is in Pisces. So it makes sense that our card is coming through in a reverse position and kind of feeling a little hazier with the Two of Cups reversed. Now, for some, this might be a partnership card in the physical world, but for most of us, I'm picking up on an energy with this card that's more about an offering of creativity or inspiration or loving insight from the universe that's being passed our way. So in the physical world, this can show up as like a friendship, a romantic partnership, a business partnership, even, especially if it's creative. And it's this exchange of this cup, or the exchange of these cups, the exchange of creativity and love and support and insight. And that could also be a part of this storyline. But especially with it flipped upside down, I read it more as an internal thing. And there's just something about the energy of this week that doesn't feel like a lot of it's about what other people are giving us. It's about us dealing with our own selves. So this energy is telling me that there is sort of a creative inspiration, an idea, an insight, a passion project that's kind of pulling at us, but it feels like we're looking at it through like soap filmed windows. Like it looks really beautiful and really hazy, but you can't quite make out all the details. And I think that's also being influenced by the moon moving into Pisces. So I want you to get clearer on what you want this to look like, because it's almost like the divine is sort of dropping this image in for us to fill in the blanks and to color in, like to draw through to outline it, to trace the outline and make it clearer based on our own free will and what we want to bring to the table, what we want to see in our lives. So it's almost like this feeling of getting a dream or just a random strike of inspiration of something that you didn't think of wanting before. And now you kind of have to like go back to the drawing board in your mind and be like, oh, if this is where my intuition is leading me, what do I want that to look like? Like it feels like almost a whole new path or project that we didn't anticipate, that's even better than what we might have been working on or thought we were working towards. And I just got some divine insights on my own life as to what that's going to be relative to. But it feels like you get to color it in. You get to sure up the lines. You get to be the one that fills in the details. But it's like the universe is showing you a path that you didn't think. It's not even that you didn't even think. It's you just hadn't even thought of it. Honestly, it's not that you didn't think it was possible or that you were worthy of it or what have you. It's like it's an entirely new inspiration, and it might be down like a similar path or avenue that you thought you were going to be going down, but it's just in a way that you didn't even think to look at it. And then you kind of have to like figure out how you're going to get there in a more concrete, real life way, as opposed to just letting yourself get caught up in the fantasy of looking at this hazy picture through this window and not taking any real life action on it. So fill in the details on Monday. Like let yourself be open to really dreamlike inspiration, but then really ground it in reality, because that's what Pisces moons, myself included, struggle with, is just getting lost and enjoying the fantasy and not putting it down on paper into action into the real world. So that's what you're working towards on Monday. Tuesday, Mars moves into Virgo. And immediately when I was reviewing this week before hitting record, the message that I got when I read that was, this is fighting with receipts. or following your passion with receipts, because Mars can be either. Mars is just a very passionate energy, so it's how we show up in our combative energy with the world around us, and it's also how we show up in sort of our sensual energy and our really passionate projects. So it could be driving towards that sense of creativity that's continuing the story from Monday. But now again, we're getting that message of like, make it more concrete, make it make sense, make sure that you have the receipts, you have the paperwork, you have the concrete plan and evidence that this will work in reality and not just in that daydream in your mind. So if it's a passion project, that's the energy that I'm getting. So I think for most of us, that's what it is. It's a continuation of Monday's story. We're just gathering the receipts so it makes sense to the outside world. So this could be like, you got a really good idea for a creative project on Monday. You started kind of filling in the creativity details. And then on Tuesday, it's like, okay, now what stats do you have to back this up that this is going to work in the real world? Like if you were going to pitch this to someone that was going to give you money to create this thing that you want to create, what sort of concrete, real life, financial, structured, Virgo essence evidence do you need to bring to the table to make it seem plausible and not just like a daydream? If it is a situation where you are finding yourself in a combative energy, if you are in an interpersonal situation that's feeling a little more aggravated, or if you feel like you're kind of fighting against something in the outside world, it is an element of, you do have to bring the evidence with you. So again, it's all about the receipts as Mars moves into Virgo. And again, this is not just the day of Tuesday. It continues on until Mars moves out of that sign, so a couple weeks. But especially as we make that transition on Tuesday, you're going to start to feel that need to like gather evidence, keep the receipts, have proof for whatever you're arguing, or have proof for whatever you want to have the outside world support you for in regards to your passion. There's also an element of the sun sextile Chiron in the very, very wee morning hours. Again, I'm always speaking to Central Time in the United States. So it's 2:15 a.m. on Chicago time. So adjust that to where you are. It could be very early, very late evening hours the night before if you're on the West Coast. But that just means that there's this little meetup of our sense of identity and our wounded healer, the parts of ourselves that we are constantly working towards. Again, those limiting beliefs, the things that I spoke to in the preamble, to heal and to be at peace with and to integrate within ourselves in a way that feels not shameful. So I think that during our sleep, there might almost be this element of sort of healing and integration of these parts of ourselves that we have felt was wounded or traumatized or shadow self with ourselves that almost feels a little more effortless. So I think the daydreaming we do on Monday kind of opens the door to some sort of internal healing for ourselves. And then we move into that Mars and Virgo energy and we start to get things more concrete and keep the receipts and show to the outside world, show our work. Show your work is the Virgo energy. Like if you're doing the math problem, you got to show your work to get credit for it. The card for the day is the Five of Cups. Now, we don't have a lot of upright cards this week, spoiler. So it's very interesting to me. One of our first upright cards is a card that I almost prefer to see reversed because it does indicate that there is a feeling of maybe having the wrong perspective on the situation at hand, looking at what's going wrong rather than looking at what is going right or could go right. So the message of this card is always that even if you've got three cups in front of you that aren't working out, maybe you've got creative projects in the past that have failed and you're getting ready to move into this new project and you're feeling that imposter syndrome because you're like, oh, everything else I've done in the past has not gone well. So why would this be any better? Looking at those upside down cups and recognizing that there's always another side of the coin. There's always upright cups that you have to just shift your perspective to notice. So again, we're talking about either driving forward with creativity with Mars and passion energy, or we're talking about driving forward with sort of a combative argument that you're trying to do, and go into it not being swamped by this imposter syndrome of like nothing I've ever done has ever worked out. So why would this work out? And instead look for the things that have worked out, because none of us, no matter how unlucky you might think you are, have had everything in our lives not go well. But somewhere along the line, you have a win. Even if the win is that you're healthy and can breathe air into your lungs and can move about your day, like there's a win somewhere. And I guarantee it's probably more than just that baseline level of like your own health. Like look for the wins, even if this is a message that's coming through myself, like even if the wins were like in your childhood. Without going too far off in a tangent, I'm getting lots of messages for myself lately about sort of like a late bloomer and kind of a stalled development in a lot of the life goals that I've wanted to achieve for myself. So there are plenty of things in my adult life that I could look at as upside down cups that haven't worked out the way that I wish they would. But I do have lots of little like glimmers of hope and successes in my childhood that indicated a creative prowess and that indicated that there is something to go forward here that the outside world was recognizing. So don't get caught up in what went wrong. Get caught up in what's gone right and try to tap back into that part of yourself. So for me, that work has been really indulging my inner child to kind of bring that part of myself forward where things did feel really possible and really open and really free to create, rather than getting so bogged down into the modern day storyline of, oh, you have to do X, Y, and Z in order to make it work. So that could be what's coming forward for you. But regardless of what it is that you're working towards in this Mars and Virgo energy, you are definitely trying to shift your perspective to what is working as opposed to what hasn't worked. Moving into Wednesday, June 18th, we have Jupiter square Neptune. So squares are always a little uncomfortable. They're not really going in alignment with one another. And Jupiter is the planet of luck. And Neptune is sort of our Pisces-like daydreamy energy. So we've got the Pisces moon at the start of the week. We're moving into the Aries moon on this day that we have this Neptune dreamy energy coming into play. So there is this element of like, luck and daydreams feel in opposition just because of the square, but like that's a momentary, like temporary state. So on Wednesday, our card is the Strength card reversed. So this is telling me that we're trying to find a sense of inner strength to keep moving forward, even when it feels like there's sort of this opposition, this square, not an opposition, technically astrology speaking, but like energetically speaking, there's like this feeling of butting up against Jupiter, your planet of luck, and Neptune, your dreams. So again, the message that I'm getting from this is like, bring it into the real world. If you feel like you're not getting lucky in your dreams, what action are you taking to move those dreams forward? Because like, we aren't made to be individuals to just sit around, do nothing, and manifest things. And as much as that sounds like that is what we want, that's so boring. Like if you literally could just like sit in the comfort of your home on your couch and think, I want an elephant, and an elephant appeared in your room and it was an effortless manifestation. First of all, we'd call in some really funky stuff because sometimes we need that waiting period to refine what it is that we want. That maybe we don't want an elephant in the middle of the room because that is not going to be good for the structure of the home. It's not going to be good for how are you going to deal with it after that. But there is an element of like wanting the fun to unfold and like to see the creative ways that the universe can kind of line things up for you and move things around and bring something into your life. And part of that is you lining yourself up and taking the actions that's aligned with your intuition to call things in. And then you have beautiful, amazing stories at the end of the day where you had the impulse to go to the store at a time you wouldn't normally go to the store, and you met someone that could finance your project and you got it done. Like there are so many things, but we have to be tapped into the intuition and we have to be willing to take action. And it could be as simple as like you wake up that morning and you have the impulse to send out an email to someone that could help you with what you're trying to work on. And again, this could be in an interpersonal level as well. Like if this reading is not so much about career and projects moving forward this week, it could be about you like feeling called to reach out to someone that may not even be the person that you're thinking you want to connect to, but like there's a trickle down effect and it connects you to your next great love or your next best friend or whatever you're trying to manifest. But we have to be willing to take action. We can't, it's no fun trying to manifest things without taking the action. And I'm talking to myself too. So I'm right there with you. Again, it's about tackling that imposter syndrome, getting over those hurdles of thinking that we aren't good enough. So we might as well not even take actions towards the things that we want. We are good enough. The opportunities are there, but they're waiting for us to show up for them. If you don't ask, you don't get. And that's not just like asking the universe and like sort of like a daydreamy Pisces moon sort of way from the beginning of the month. It's about going out and interacting in the world and asking for what you want and asking for what you want in your actions as well. So like if you want to be a writer, you show up every day and you write, and that is you energetically asking the world to give you what you want. If you want to be a great artist, you sit up at your easel every day and you just show up. But you have to take the action because that book is not going to write itself, and that painting is not going to paint itself, and that relationship is not going to just magically come together if you never go out into the world and try something that might be kind of scary. So we're trying to take this reversed strength and flip it upright and recognize that we're strong enough to take this action, even in the face of Jupiter square Neptune, where it feels like it might be a little more impossible. Moving into Thursday, June 19th, happy Juneteenth. We are going to move into the card because the astrology is relatively quiet. And the card is the Six of Wands reversed. Again, we have a lot of reverse cards this week. So this card is normally upright about being in a place of exaltation, being in a place of being seen and admired and sort of recognized for your accomplishments. In a reverse position, we got to be this for ourselves. We got to recognize our own accomplishments. We got to put ourselves up on a pedestal before the outside world is going to recognize those things for ourselves. So this is really, again, so much inner work this week of letting go of the limiting beliefs, letting go of the I'm not good enough, letting go of the stories that are telling you that this isn't going to work out, so I might as well not try. So this day, on Thursday, I want you to specifically sit down and give yourself credit for all of your accomplishments. And again, maybe even go all the way back to childhood and like be like, man, that was great that in second grade I won that award. That was really cool. Like there were a lot of people competing for that. And then like, I graduated from high school and that was a good accomplishment. And I graduated from college and that was a great accomplishment. And I got hired at this job that I really wanted, or I manifested an apartment of my dreams, or whatever it is. Give yourself the time to even just sit down and write out a list of everything that you've ever accomplished that you think deserves a sense of pride for. And maybe even dig deeper to the things that maybe you don't think deserves a sense of pride, but the outside world would, and shift your perspective around things. Because sometimes we do like to kind of downplay our own accomplishments and be like, oh, shucks, that's not that big of a deal. But if someone else is going to think it's a pretty big deal, maybe you should too. So this is about being your own biggest fan, putting yourself up on that pedestal and recognizing yourself for your accomplishments, because that is how the outside world comes around to that same viewpoint. On Friday, we have the summer solstice. The sun is going to finally be in Cancer, and my Cancer sun sign is so happy. But we also have our second upright card of the week, and that is Justice upright. So first, let's talk about Sun into Cancer, because Sun into Cancer is I think it's a beautiful energy because that is where my sun sign is. So it feels very natural to me. Some people feel uncomfortable with it. If you have a lot of earth in your chart, or if you just kind of see yourself as a less emotional person and a more logical person, Sun into Cancer, there's a lot of memes that float around during that time period about how everyone except for the water signs during Sun in Cancer are just like, what is going on? I can't handle all these emotions. Look to the water signs in your life. Ask them for advice on how to cry it out. I'm going to tell you, my Pisces moon will tell you to put on the saddest song you can think of and just have yourself a good cry and get it out of your system and then move on with your day. But there's definitely an energy of emotions, yes, but the emotions don't have to be sad emotions. They don't have to be about crying. Crying can just be part of it. And quite frankly, I cry the entire spectrum. One of my favorite things that I've ever heard Cancer say is Kristen Bell talks about how, I can't remember the exact quote, but she's like, on a spectrum of 1 to 10, if she's above a 7 or below a 4, she's crying. And that is a very Cancerian mindset. Like if I'm happy, not even super happy, if I'm like 3 degrees below super happy, I'm probably going to cry. And if I'm like 3 degrees above super sad, I'm probably going to cry. So first of all, crying is not something to be ashamed of. Let yourself feel emotions. Let the energy move through you. It's cathartic to have a good cry. And especially if you're letting yourself really go deep into it and not try to hold it back. When you hold it back, it hinders the ability for the energy to move properly. And then you have to keep returning to that emotion. And so if you let it flow through you, you can actually kind of come to an end to that sort of wave that's coming through your system, and you can move forward and you can go on to whatever the next emotion is. But let yourself let yourself ride the wave in so that you can get into shore, rather than ditching the wave halfway through and getting caught in the undertow for forever. Oh my God, that's a great metaphor. I watched Blue Crush this week. Thank you so much for the universe to give me that metaphor. So there's definitely this feeling during Cancer season of being okay, not just okay with your emotions, but letting yourself ride the waves. And this cracks open your heart. And what happens when you crack open your heart is not only are you more open to to loving the world around you, you're open to receiving love and feeling that love deeply. And you're also so open to the inspiration. Like there's a reason that the water signs are connected to both emotions and intuition, and they're kind of connected to the cups cards as well, because these things go well together. If you're letting your emotions flow, your intuition can flow as well. And you can kind of let this energy flow through you like water. So that's your assignment for Sun and Cancer. Like recognize that the emotions are connected to movement forward and to really opening yourself up to feeling things on a deeper level, not just in your physical, emotional body, but spiritually and intuition wise as well. So the Justice card coming in on the day that this solstice is happening is all about balance. And it's also a little about karma. So I love that I just had this little tangent about like, let the energy move through you so that you can move on, because it is about balance. Like you have a good cry, and then most of the time you're going to feel a little bit better. Maybe it's not right after the cry, but like a couple hours later, like it's crazy how quickly emotions move through you if you just let them flow. There's been like people in childhood development that have talked about like the actual timeline of a toddler's tantrum only being like a couple minutes long. But when you're a parent or someone being around that child while they're having the tantrum, watching them go through the emotions, it's so a natural impulse to want to either pacify the emotions or stifle them or whatever. And if you just breathe through it and sit through it with them, the mood will pass. And I say this as someone who's not a parent and I haven't tried this personally, but there is, there's childhood development theories that are about this of like just letting the energy move through it. And like you could probably time it on a stopwatch. And when you start recognizing how quickly the mood changes, that becomes so valuable when you're in the thick of it. So, and that's especially true as someone that does kind of ride the waves of depression occasionally. Like, it's crazy how it feels like it's lasting forever when you're in a downward spiral or downward part of the wave, whatever we want to call it, down on the roller coaster. And I myself have found it really helpful to mark down in a journal, like X number time on this date, I feel really, really low. And then come back to it and mark when I start to feel myself coming out the other side. And I feel like I've been there for weeks. And it's usually like less than 24 hours. So that's something I do want to impart to you as, a Cancer that feels the emotions, that does have past history of emotional depression and anxiety and all of those things. There's a time limit for this that happens, and it doesn't feel like it's that short when you're in it. I totally honor that emotion, but when you let the wave move through you, and if you mark it down, the time, you'll start to realize that it's much quicker turnaround than you think it was, and the resolution comes much better when you've kind of let yourself feel it. So this is about the balance of like feeling in the thick of the emotion and coming out the other side, and recognizing that there is a balance to that and you're not going to get stuck on one side or the other. And then also the element of karma coming through. When you let yourself feel and you let yourself crack open through your heart, you learn to unconditionally love the world around you, and especially hopefully those closest to you as well. But like, when I'm in my most unconditionally loved, spiritually tapped in place, I can walk down the sidewalk and have such love for everyone else walking down that sidewalk and for the entire world around me, the trees, the birds, the squirrels, the rabbits, all of the elements of existence become a part of that unconditional love. And so that's going to really intensify your good karma. If you can get in that place of unconditional love, so much love is going to flow towards you. So I love that this card is upright. I love that it's happening at the start of Cancer season. And it is a reminder that there is a balance to every feeling. There is a balance to every action. Okay. Moving into Saturday, let me take a sip of tea. We are going to have an astrology of Mercury trine the North Node, 6:29 a.m. on Central Standard Time in America. This is a trine, so it's like a lucky little partnership, little coming together again to have a cup of tea is what I usually say. And Mercury is the planet of communication. The North Node is sort of our true north in this life, the destiny that we're pointed towards, the challenges that we're meant to overcome, to go out of our comfort zone. That's essentially what the North Node is. If you study the North Node and the South Node, especially in your own natal chart, the South Node always is said to represent like what you've lived several lifetimes doing. So you're an expert in that energy. And then the North Node is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, that you're being challenged this lifetime to learn and do more of and move away from the comfort zone that you've done so often in past lives and towards something new so you can become more well-rounded. So with Mercury's trine the North Node in the early hours on Saturday feels like it's about allowing yourself to kind of push past your comfort zone. And in a way that still feels easy, because a trine is not meant to be like, oh, I'm going to muscle through this. It's like, maybe I should go slightly outside of the lines today and like do something different in my routine, or create something that's outside of my normal wheelhouse, or talk to someone new, like speak to a stranger while out and about. And that's kind of the energy that's just going to have an incremental effect of moving us towards our goals and our ultimate life mission. The card is the Knight of Cups reversed. So, couple ways to interpret this card. Upright, it's an offering of love, creative inspiration, intuition, inspiration. Usually I'd say upright, it's probably from the outside world. Like someone's like, here's an idea for you. Here's an opportunity for you. Here's an act of love for you. Reverse, I do usually get that internal feeling of like, we are offering ourselves love. We are opening ourselves up to our creative inspiration. We're not looking for it outside of ourselves. There is an element for a very few number of people watching that there could be sort of a less aligned offer coming in on Saturday that you don't want to accept. Like it's almost like, and again, I feel like this is like one person watching. So use your intuition, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. But there's like one person that I do get the feeling that as you're offering yourself the love that you're turning inward today, because you are the Knight of Cups giving it to yourself, someone might show up kind of sniffing around that love that you're embracing and want to kind of steal some light and come in sort of a funky energy. Could be a past partner comes in and is like, hey, like, let's rekindle something, or, whatever. And you're going to know, especially if you're in alignment with offering yourself love that day, if it feels off. Like when you're offering yourself love, someone coming in with something that's not pure is going to feel weird. And it may not feel like dark or heavy or evil or bad. It's just not going to feel right. And it could be as simple as you're like, no, I'm good. I'm having fun with myself today. I don't need to hang out with anyone else. But it feels like there could be an opportunity to dodge a bullet from an outside offer on this day, because someone's coming in presenting themselves like a pure Knight of Cups, and they actually have like unpure intentions, or they just aren't aligned with their own heart. That's honestly what it is. It's not so much that they're like coming in to be mean or rude or whatever. It's that they don't even realize they're not aligned with their pure, honest heart. And that's going to down the line not be good for you, because you are aligning more and more with your heart, because you are following that Cancer season and energy. Okay, moving into Sunday, the 22nd of June, we have two littler bits of astrology. We have Mars sextile Jupiter in like the morning hours, 5:31 a.m. Central Standard Time. And that's the planet of passion. Again, could be passion projects, could be passionate fighting. It is coming in with a little kiss of luck, sextile Jupiter, the planet of luck. So your passion projects do have a little dose of luck. starting in the early morning hours. I do feel called to say, if you're not a morning creativity person normally, it might be a good day to get an early start on whatever your creative project is or whatever it is that you're working towards, because it does feel like that energy could dissipate a little more quickly. Like you have like about like 5:31 a.m. Central Standard Time, something kind of opens up a door that allows you to follow that passion project in a way that feels extra lucky. And then it kind of like by afternoon and especially evening time, like that luck feels less intensified. The afternoon hours come in with the sun square Saturn. So your sense of self, sun, your identity, and Saturn, life's lessons that are trying to be integrated, are kind of in opposition to one another. So I don't feel like dwelling on this energy a lot, but just know that the afternoon might kind of bring up those limiting beliefs, those, oh, I've learned from the past that this doesn't work, so clearly it's not worth moving forward, because it feels like our sense of identity is getting wrapped up in the lessons that we've learned in a way that's not quite accurate. So, like, again, it feels like it's like, oh, I've learned from the past that my romantic relationships always fail, so it's just not even worth trying. I've learned from the past that my creative projects never go through, so it's just not worth trying. It's an energy of like, I am not, there's something fundamentally wrong with me, and I've learned that because things have failed in the past. And it's like, no, that's not the lesson Saturn was trying to give you. Saturn was trying to give you the lesson that, you know, you need to try things a little bit differently, or maybe that wasn't your path and we're redirecting you to another path, because rejection is always redirection towards something that's more in alignment to your goals. But you have to keep moving forward to get there. You can't just be rejected and give up. The card for the day is the Three of Wands reversed. So upright, it's a very positive card. It's like you're creating your manifestations, basically the things that you are visualizing, you're seeing come forward in your future. Your ship's about to come in. Reversed, it feels like, again, we're kind of getting in our own way. Like, it's not that the ships aren't coming in, but we're like standing on the wrong shore, or we're holding them off. Honestly, that's what it feels like. It feels like we're in charge of letting the ships dock or not. And for some reason, the ship's coming in and we're not giving them the signal to come on in and dock, because of fear, because of self-sabotage, because of limiting beliefs, because of imposter syndrome. So we want to flip this upright on Sunday. And again, I do feel like the energy in the morning hours is going to be easier to flip upright. Once we hit that sun square Saturn in the afternoon, it's going to feel a little bit harder. So I would start the process early if you can. Work on a passion project because it's going to have a little bit of a kiss of luck. And then like just let yourself kind of settle into the evening hours where it feels like that Saturn is trying to mess with your head about what's possible and what's not possible. But you're so much closer than you think, and you're in control is the biggest part of this card. Like, you're the one calling the ships into shore and letting them dock and get what you deserve. So don't self-sabotage your dreams. Wave them on in. And maybe that means taking a little bit of action in the early morning hours, sending that email, connecting to that person, doing what it is you need to do to call those opportunities in. I'm gonna really hate myself listening to this later, but it's all good advice. Okay, so that is our week of astrology and cards. I feel like there's something else that wants to come forward about just an overall arc of the week. Sun in Cancer is really sticking out to me. So I really want you to contemplate not only the riding the emotions that I mentioned earlier, that sort of blue crush, riding the wave, or getting stuck in the undertow metaphor, but also recognizing that in order to ride those emotions, Cancers are the maternal energy of the zodiac for a reason. Like, you have to know how to take care, yes, of others, but also of yourself and your inner child. So again, I said this at the start of the week a little bit, and that like we want to be gentle with ourselves, but like, what is the phrase? Is it gentle parenting? Like, it's like not fully gentle parenting, but not fully tough love. Like we need to know where to draw the line between like, I'm going to be supportive and maternal and nurturing to my inner child, to myself, to all these feelings that are coming up, but I'm also not going to be such a gentle parent that I don't learn to toughen up and move forward. So really think of yourself this week as sort of like this inner child that you're trying to train how to be in the world and how to feel secure and stable and nurtured, but also encouraged to push outside your comfort zone, because that is how we become functioning individuals in this world with a secure identity and the ability to get stuff done and not just feel like you need to scrape your knee and sit in the corner crying about it for the rest of the day. So yeah, kind of ruminate on that metaphor of like you being your own child, and you want to make sure that you're both nurturing and pushing the bird out of the nest, so to speak. Okay, with that in mind, we are going to move into the personalized reading. If you're new around here, know that I do these weekly drawings to do a personalized reading from anyone who is a monthly or annual subscriber on the Substack, or anyone who's given a one-time tip of anything more, $1 or more, in the links below. However, if you feel called to watch this reading that I'm about to do that's for a specific individual, there's probably a reason for it, because we're all kind of part of a collective. We're dealing with similar energy. So even though their situation might not mirror yours, you might get advice that you need from it, even if it's just in little pockets and snippets of the reading. So feel free to continue to watch. But if you did tip your reader, or if you are a paid subscriber, we have a really small pool that we're spinning the wheel on this week. So we're going to see who comes forward. And Tracy. Tracy D, I think this is your first reading. Thank you for recently becoming maybe you did win. I don't know if this is your first one or not, but I appreciate that you recently became an annual subscriber to the Substack, and you get a personalized reading now. I'm getting called towards the deck that I have as a reserve. So sometimes I get called to use the same deck that we did for the weekly reading. This one I'm getting called for the Lioness Oracle deck. So usually this aligns with sort of more feminine energy and sort of more that Cancerian vibe that's coming through this week. So I do feel like we are going to be dealing more with emotions and creativity and perhaps relationships of the heart with this reading. I just go into these letting the energy unfold and tell me what it is that it needs to hear, or what it needs to say. Let's see what Tracy has in store. I used to have 2 Tracys on the list, which is why I have a last initial on that. I guess I could technically take the initial off now that there's only 1 Tracy. Okay, Tracy, we're going to do a past, present, future to start. And then if I need any more cards after that, oh my gosh, the cards are very talkative, but they're still in a stack. Nothing flipped over upright. So what does Tracy need to hear, know, or be aware of this week? Okay, we got a past card. We got a present card. So far, they're both upright. That's a good sign. Future card is reversed, but we'll get to that in just a second. So in the recent past, could be past couple months and weeks, could be past couple years, we have the 3 of Cups energy. So this is a really lovely energy. It is an energy of community, and sometimes family. It does have a very heavy feminine energy to it. So I like to think of it mostly as like the girl gang or the coven card, in that it's a bunch of very softer, intuitive, magical energies coming together to kind of intensify that magic. So I always get sort of an image of like the Witches of Eastwick, if you're familiar with that movie, where they all come together and they start kind of having drinks and snacks and talking about what they want in life, and it kind of conjures people into being and circumstances into being. That's kind of what this is. It's like power, like strength in numbers, but particularly strength in the more feminine leaning numbers. And again, we don't necessarily attach that to gender. So whatever energies in your life feel intuitive and nurturing and magical, the recent past has shown that there's been some influence of your support system being really important in calling in your manifestations. So that may or may not still be true, but it's a beautiful blessing to have in your past. And it's kind of a reminder that that's worked for you in the past. So if you feel like maybe you've lost touch with some individuals or you've just kind of transferred friend groups or whatever, it might be a reminder of it so that you can kind of think about maybe being open to those connections again, whether it be with the same people or similar energies that are more aligned with you moving forward. But I do get the feeling that community is really key for you kind of getting your dreams called in. The present energy this week, as we move into this reading, is the Nine of Wands. And the Nine of Wands is always a message to keep going because you're so much closer than you think you are. So, this is definitely an energy that I always compare to a staircase. Like if you were blindfolded and walking up the staircase to what is it? Is that the No, it's not the Washington Monument. What is the stairs that Rocky runs up? It's some like national monument type thing where it's just tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of stairs. If you were walking up a staircase of that magnitude, blindfolded, and you just had to keep taking it one step at a time, not knowing how many steps were left, it's natural that at some point you're gonna feel exhausted and you're gonna feel like you've been walking up the staircase for forever and like you might not ever reach the top. So this is a card of like learn to rest, not quit. And also recognize, again, with our reading for the week, recognize your accomplishments in the past and that you are capable of moving forward and getting to this goal. Because I do feel like you're just like one or two steps from the top of the staircase, but you have to trust your intuition. Sometimes it's a really good time period to ask your guides if you connect any sort of like spiritual elements, whether it be elementals or angels or ancestors. It's a good time to kind of like hand it over to them and be like, please, like, send me a sign or like, help me move forward, help me make it through this last push, because they can see what you can't because you're blindfolded. But if you had your best friend next to you, again, coming back to this sort of like coven energy, if you had, or even a group of people with you walking up the stairs and you're the only one blindfolded, it's that much easier to know that you need to keep going when the person next to you is like, you got two more steps, you got this. So there's an element of like maybe using the spiritual world for that, or maybe using the people around you for that to recognize how far you've come. So that is your current present. Keep going. You're almost there. The future card is the Moon reversed. So the moon's already kind of like an inward reflective energy, even when it's upright, because it's about us kind of confronting our shadow sides and integrating the shadow and having peace with both the light and dark parts of ourselves, the tame and the wild parts of ourselves. When it's reversed, it could be several things, but I'm getting an energy of this really being internal work. This could be therapy. So if you do have any sort of talk therapy that you indulge in, there could be a need to kind of dip back into that toolbox in the near future. And it feels more like a maintenance thing. It doesn't feel like it's, oh my gosh, life is in crisis and I absolutely need help right now. SOS, get me to therapy. It feels more like, I'm recognizing myself slip back into old patterns or thought processes, and I'm just going to go in for like a little tune up. And that could be true of other modalities. So, like if therapy doesn't resonate for you, but something like energy healing or any sort of other practice that helps you kind of find your alignment, coaching, like individual coaching is a good one as well. Like this feels like it's just like you just need a little bit of a shift. Like someone just needs to turn a rich one direction and you'll be back on track. But like if you let yourself keep going down the path without checking in, it's going to get more out of alignment. I hope that makes sense. It feels good though. It doesn't feel like it's super dark, reversed moon energy. It feels like you've already kind of done a lot of shadow integration. And this is just like, we just need to tweak something. And again, it's probably related to this whole like limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, all of the stuff that's coming up for all of us during this week and during Cancer season. Let me see what's underneath the deck because I'm just curious as to what else is kind of influencing this. We have the King of Cups reversed. So King of Cups uprights, very loving, very open, very nurturing, very emotionally open, I guess is the word that I'm looking for, but like not afraid to express the emotions, not afraid to examine their emotions. Inverse, there could be an element of you trying to sort of shut a door to something That's the imagery that I'm getting. Like, it's like that. I think there's somewhere along the lines that someone talks about how, like, internally we have several different rooms. And sometimes with certain traumas and things like that, like, we just can't even look at it. And so it's almost like you take a room in your internal world and you shut the door and you lock it and you just don't go in that room anymore. And there's a feeling of, there's something that the King of Cups reversed has shut the door on, that you have shut the door on, that you do need to open back up, because we don't want to just be walking around. We don't want to be living in an internal mansion that's 90% shut and locked doors of rooms we never go into. So, like, while there is a time and a place sometimes to put something away and deal with the rest of life and maybe not examine those past hurts, there's also a time and a space that you do need to go back to those rooms and open them up and examine what's in there and clear them out and air them out and make it a livable space again, because we don't want to get you to the point where, like, all of the rooms in your heart or your mind are now shut and locked and there's no more space for anything else for being open. So yeah, I do think, again, I would call in some sort of assistance for this, because again, we did get the mindset that the 3 of Cups, your community, is really good for you. And someone, I don't want to say they have to be professional, but I do get the feeling with the Moon card reversed and with the talk of therapy, we do want to call someone in that has sort of an outside perspective. It may not be as easy as, like, I'm going to go vent to a girlfriend and it's going to fix all my problems. This feels like these doors might need a little bit of a higher level support. So if you feel called to any of that, if there's anyone you work with in the past that really has been resonating for you, maybe you reach out for an individual session. Uh, with that in mind, Teresa, this isn't necessarily a message specifically for you. I know this will be relevant to you, but I do want to give a little last announcement to the end of this reading. If you personally are watching this to the end and you do feel called that you need an outside perspective or a coach in regards to something that you're trying to accomplish in your life, particularly in regards to something that is physically related, whether that be holding emotions in your body or trying to make some sort of physical change, I do have a new sort of offering that I've just recently launched on my website, which is called Body Talk Coaching. It's a long-term coaching program. It's kind of an integration of what I used to do, which is health coaching, which was holistic health. So it was about food and diet and exercise, but also about your emotional life and how that influences those things. But then I'm also integrating the energy healing aspects of things and kind of tapping into exercises that helps you stay in touch with what your body's trying to tell you, not just on a physical level, but on an emotional and spiritual level as well. So it is a 12-week program. It's 3 months. It's a weekly basis. We alternate between talk sessions and body sessions, which is either Reiki and or yoga / strength training, but depending on what you prefer or what you need. So if anyone's watching this and they do feel like that is the type of help that they're looking for, you can find out more about that at the links below, or you can just check it out at michelleshawalker.com/coaching. So I hope that these readings resonated for anyone who watched this far. And I hope that you have a beautiful, wonderful week and a lovely and emotionally aligned start to Cancer season.